This is Bethany with your Lumberjack Experience series here at SFA in Nacogdoches, and I'm going to talk to you about why this is the oldest town in Texas. So a little bit about me first is that I grew up in Nacogdoches since I was 6 years old, and I'm the daughter of a Texas history teacher, so I have had a lot of history lessons in my lifetime. One of the things that Texas children learn about since elementary school is the history of the state, and while most people in Texas know that the state has had 6 flags fly over it, Nacogdoches has had 9 different flags fly over the city alone, and I'm going to explain the history of our different flags. Nacogdoches was first settled 10,000 years ago by the Cattle Indian tribe and remained a Cattle Indian settlement until the early 19th century when European explorers started to settle in the Nacogdoches and Texas area. The first flag to fly over the state of Texas was the Spanish flag of Castile and Leon, which flew over the state of Texas for over 300 years, starting in 1519. However, it is believed that in 1685, the first flag to fly over Nacogdoches was the French flag when the French explorer Robert de La Salle led an expedition from the Louisiana area into the East Texas area, and it is believed that he traveled as far west as Nacogdoches. The Spanish were not happy with the French settling in their Texas land, so to reclaim it, they built the first mission in Nacogdoches, known as Mission Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe de los Nacogdoches in 1716. This allowed them to fly their flag over the city. Almost 100 years later, the settlers in Texas began to rebel against the Spanish government. This led to the early years of the Mexican War of Independence. In August of 1812, the Gutierrez-McGee expedition flew their flag over the stone fort, which today is known as the Old Stone Fort Museum in Nacogdoches. It was used as a joint Mexican-U.S. filibustering expedition against the Spanish, and they called themselves the Republic Army of the North. This flag lasted from 1812 to 1813. In 1819, Dr. James Long believed that Texas was part of Louisiana as claimed by La Salle in 1682. He believed that it should have been included in the Louisiana Purchase of 1803. So in June of 1819, he came to Nacogdoches and proclaimed himself president of the newly declared Republic of Texas. His flag flew briefly over the stone fort from 1819 to 1821. This was known as the Dr. James Long Expedition. After this expedition took place, the Mexicans in Texas began to fight for their independence from Spain, and in 1821, the Mexican Federal Republic was born. However, pretty soon, as early as December 1821, Anglo settlers began to settle in the Nacogdoches area because it was considered the gateway to Texas, and pretty soon, these settlers began to outnumber the Spanish-Mexican population. In the middle of the Mexican reign of Texas, a small rebellion occurred in Nacogdoches. Hayden Edward had obtained a grant from Mexico to settle 800 families in the Nacogdoches area. However, most of the land had already been settled legally and illegally by early Spanish, Indian, and Anglo squatters. He lost the grant on December 16, 1826, so he and his brother Benjamin planted a flag in front of the stone fort. This Fredonia rebellion lasted only 37 days. Impresario Stephen F. Austin raised the militia, and on January 22, 1827, the Fredonians gave up and retreated eastward across the Sabine River. This ended the Fredonia Rebellion. Almost 10 years after the Fredonia Rebellion occurred, a new flag flew over Texas. Texas had officially become its own country. General Sam Houston had defeated Mexican General Santa Anna at the Battle of San Jacinto on April 21, 1836, thus allowing Texas to have her independence from Mexico. Texas became the Republic of Texas, and the Lone Star flag promptly flew over the state for over 150 years. 10 years after Texas had become the Republic of Texas, many of the settlers in the state wanted to become part of the Union. People in America were concerned about that because they did not want Texas to enter as another slaveholding state. On July 4, 1845, the Texas Congress voted to accept the Articles of Annexation offered by U.S. President James K. Polk, and on December 29, 1845, she was proclaimed as a state. On February 19, 1846, the Lone Star flag lowered over the Texas Capitol in Austin, and the Stars and Stripes was raised. However, the Lone Star flag was still allowed to fly just below the U.S. flag in Texas. Almost 15 years after Texas was annexed into the United States, a bloody civil war broke out between the states of the North and the South. Texas seceded with many other southern states in the March of 1861, thus beginning the Civil War. The Stars and Stripes was lowered over Austin, and the Confederate flag was raised. The war lasted for 4 years, and on April 9, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to the United States General Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. After the surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, Texas and the rest of the Confederate States were annexed back into the Union. Since then, the United States flag, the Stars and Bars, has flown over Nacogdoches and the rest of Texas. And that's it for this episode of the Lumberjack Experience. I'm Bethany, and thanks for listening to the history of the 9 flags of Nacogdoches and why we are considered the oldest town in Texas.